I found her wedding ring in the freezer, right between a bag of frozen peas and half a pint of mango sorbet. No note, no explanation. Just sitting there in a small glass ramekin, like she was flash freezing the last 8 years of our life together. I didn't touch it. I just closed the freezer door and sat down on the kitchen floor. My socks were wet. I had spilled a glass of water an hour earlier and didn't bother cleaning it up. That's the kind of man I've become, apparently. The kind who lets things stay broken, cold, and wet. At 1:43 a.m., she texted me, "I have my own life, and it doesn't always include you." She didn't even say my name. I stared at that message until my screen dimmed and locked itself. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone. I just sat there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the fridge that now held the last symbol of our marriage. That, and a half-eaten lasagna she claimed she was saving for lunch 3 days ago but never touched, just like she hadn't touched me in months? Maybe longer. I typed back, "Then it no longer includes me." And that was it. Or at least I thought it would be. But that's when the calls started. First 1, then 3, then 12. I didn't answer. My phone began to buzz so constantly that it slid across the table on its own, like some cursed object from a cheap horror movie. She started calling from unknown numbers, then from her mother's phone, then blocked. I turned my phone off, unplugged the landline. Yes, I still have a landline. Don't ask. And then I went back to the freezer and stared at the ring again. Something about the way she left it. Not in a box, not on the counter, not mailed back to me with a post-it and a smiley face, but frozen. It meant something. It felt deliberate, symbolic, or just cruel. But here's where things really go sideways. When I finally did take the ring out 2 days later, out of curiosity, anger, I don't even know. There was something etched inside the band that hadn't been there before. A name. Not mine. I didn't even want to look at it again, but the damn ring kept calling to me. Not literally, of course, but it sat on the kitchen counter like it had something to say. 2 days had passed since I pulled it out of the freezer. I'd wrapped it in a napkin, like it might contaminate something. Like I might contaminate something. The house still smelled like her perfume, that expensive citrus one she wore when she wanted people to think she was important. She always sprayed it right before a video call, even if she was just wearing sweatpants. Image was everything to her. I unwrapped the ring slowly. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe to feel nothing. Maybe to feel the final sting. But when I held it under the kitchen light and turned it just slightly, I saw something that made my stomach clench. There was a name engraved inside the band, a name that wasn't mine. Clara. That was it. Just one word. One name, etched like it had been there for years. But it hadn't. I knew it hadn't. I helped choose that ring. I paid for the engraving myself. It was supposed to say, "Until we're dust." That's what we agreed on. Her idea, not mine. But now, there was no trace of that. Just Clara. I didn't know a Clara. At least, I didn't think I did. But Maribel, she definitely did. Because later that night, while I was lying on the living room floor, not the couch, not the bed, but the damn floor, she called me again. I let it ring 5 times. Then 6. I was about to silence it, but I picked up. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. All I heard was the sound of her breathing, shallow, shaky, like she was in the middle of a panic attack but trying to keep it quiet. Finally, she whispered, "Did you look inside it?" I said nothing. Her voice was like glass under my skin. "I didn't want you to see it like that," she added, barely audible. "It wasn't meant for—" She stopped. "Who's Clara?" I asked. Long silence. And then, with a voice I didn't recognize, not because it sounded different, but because it sounded honest for once. She said, "She's why I can't tell you everything. Yet." Then she hung up. That night, I didn't sleep. Not a second. I kept replaying that call in my head. Every word. Every breath. I started digging through old photos, scouring her social media, even the hidden albums she didn't know I could see. Still no Clara. But something felt off. A photo from last Christmas had disappeared. I was sure it had been there before. It was taken at her sister's cabin. I remember because the power went out, and we all ended up lighting candles and eating cold turkey sandwiches in the dark. That photo used to be one of her favorites. Now it was gone. Deleted. Scrubbed. But I still had a copy. And when I zoomed in on the background, near the window, I saw it. A woman. Short dark hair, half turned toward the camera, wearing a red scarf that didn't belong to anyone in the family. She was staring at Maribel, and Maribel was smiling back, in a way I hadn't seen her smile in over a year. I stared at that photo for what felt like an hour. Zoomed in, zoomed out. The woman in the red scarf, Clara, I was now sure, was partially obscured, but not enough to miss the look on her face. It wasn't casual. It wasn't just a friend smiling in the background. It was intimate. Familiar. She was looking at Maribel the way I used to. The way Maribel used to look at me. I searched every face in that photo again. Maribel's sister, her cousin, her brother, and his loud-mouthed wife. All accounted for. No one seemed to notice the woman near the window, which is strange, considering she was standing inside the house. I remembered that Christmas. We'd all been freezing, and everyone stayed in the living room by the fire. I would have noticed a stranger. I should have. That's when the next message came in, from a number I didn't recognize. Stop looking. Let her go. That was it. No name, no context, just that. My heart started pounding in this slow, heavy rhythm, like it was suddenly too aware of itself. I replied instantly with one word. Who? No answer. I ran the number through a reverse lookup site. Burner. Untraceable. I wish I could say I played it cool after that, but I didn't. I started pacing the apartment, talking to myself like a lunatic. Who the hell sends something like that? And how did they know I was looking? The only person I'd told about the ring was my coworker Denny, and he can't even use AirDrop without crashing his phone. So how did someone know? Unless someone was already watching. The apartment felt different after that. Not haunted, just observed. Every mirror felt a little too reflective. Every shadow, too still. I didn't sleep that night either. And in the morning, someone had slid an envelope under my door. Inside was a photo, the same one I had found, only this version had me cropped out. I held the photo in both hands, gripping it so tightly the edges started to bend. It was printed on thick, matte paper, the kind you'd get from an actual photo lab, not a home printer. There was no writing on the back, no date, no watermark, just that image. Everyone else in the room, the window, the red scarf. But me? Gone. Not photoshopped. Removed. It looked as if I'd never been there at all. My first instinct was that it was some twisted prank, some psychological jab from Maribel to mess with me for leaving. But that didn't make sense. She wouldn't go to this length. Passive-aggressive texts and emotionally vague voice notes. Sure. But this was personal, in a way that felt like it wasn't about revenge. It felt more like a warning. I grabbed the original photo from my laptop and placed it side by side with the print someone had slid under my door. Same lighting, same expressions. The only difference was me. And not just in that photo. I started realizing there were other absences too, subtler ones. I checked her Instagram again. Posts that used to include me now had different crops. A dinner photo where my sleeve should have been beside hers. Now just an empty chair. A beach shot where we were holding hands. Now only her, standing alone by the water, hand awkwardly curled, as if the edit wasn't perfect. But it was effective enough. At a glance, you'd never know I existed. I decided to call her. I was done playing detective. She picked up on the first ring, which startled me more than if she hadn't answered at all. "I need to talk to you," I said, not bothering with small talk. A pause. Then, "I know what photo you got." "So it's you," I said, my voice cracking a little. "No, not me, but I knew it would happen. I just didn't think it'd be this soon." I stood up, heart pounding. Who the hell is sending these? More silence. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't have seen the engraving. You weren't supposed to go that far." I nearly laughed. I wasn't supposed to look inside the ring you left in the freezer? What exactly was I supposed to do, Maribel? Put it on and pretend you just vanished for enlightenment? She didn't rise to the bait. Her voice was low, steady. "Clara's not who you think, and all of this, it's bigger than me. Bigger than us." I had no idea what that meant, and honestly, it sounded insane. But before I could ask more, the line went dead. I stared at my screen. Call ended. No goodbye. No explanation. Just like that, she was gone again. But this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. The number she called from? It wasn't hers. And it matched the number that had texted me. "Stop looking." I stared at the number for a long time. It wasn't saved in my contacts, and it definitely wasn't Maribel's. I double-checked my call logs, scrolling back weeks. The same number had appeared 4 times before. Once at 2:17 a.m., once during a work meeting I barely remember, and twice while I was out getting groceries. I never answered. I never even noticed. Now I couldn't stop noticing it. I dialed the number back, hand trembling like I hadn't slept in days, because I hadn't. It rang twice, then cut to silence. Not voicemail, just dead air. I stayed on the line for a while, listening to absolutely nothing. And then, just as I was about to hang up, I heard a click. No voice. Just breathing. Slow, steady. Almost like they were waiting for me to speak first. I whispered, "Who is this?" But the moment I did, the call ended. Not even 10 seconds later, I got a new text. Just a photo. This one wasn't old. It wasn't cropped. It was new. Taken from outside my building, from across the street. It showed me, right there, in the window, holding my phone to my ear. They were watching me in real time. That was when I finally felt it. Not just fear, but that raw, helpless panic that wraps around your spine and makes it hard to stand up. I closed the blinds, locked the door. Then, without really knowing why, I checked the freezer again. The ring was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every sound felt deliberate. Every floorboard creak made my throat tighten. I sat in the kitchen with every light on, clutching a mug of cold coffee I never drank. My phone sat face down on the table, but I didn't need to look at it. I could still see that last photo in my head. Me, standing in the window, holding the phone. Someone across the street had taken it. Someone watching. Someone close. But it was the freezer that haunted me most. I had placed the ring back in the ramekin the night before. I know I did. I remember wrapping it in a paper towel, tucking it in the back next to the frozen blueberries, like putting it out of sight would keep the madness from spreading. But now it was gone. Nothing else moved, nothing stolen. Just the ring. Gone like it had never existed. Around 4:30 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. Slow, deliberate ones. My building is quiet at night. Older tenants, mostly. No one's pacing the halls in the middle of the night unless they've got a reason. I crept to the peephole, holding my breath. There was a man standing at the far end of the corridor, right beneath the flickering overhead light. He wasn't moving, just standing, facing my door. I couldn't make out his face. He was wearing a black cap pulled low, and something about his posture was wrong. Too still, too flat. Like he was trying not to exist too loudly. He stayed there for 5 full minutes. I didn't blink. Then he turned and walked away without ever knocking. I didn't sleep after that either. By the time morning came, I decided to go back to the photo. The original one. Christmas. The woman in the red scarf. Clara. I still had a copy backed up on a cloud drive she didn't know about. When I opened the full resolution version and zoomed in again, something new hit me. Something I'd missed before. Clara wasn't just looking at Maribel. She was wearing my jacket. Not one like mine. Mine. The navy corduroy with the missing button. The one I lost a year ago and assumed I'd left at a restaurant or gym. But it was there, on Clara's shoulders, clear as day. And Maribel was smiling at her in a way I hadn't seen since before our 3rd anniversary. I had questions. Dozens. But only one person to ask. I called Maribel again. This time, she didn't answer. But a minute later, I got a text from her old number. "You're getting too close. Let it go." And right below it was another photo. This one was inside my apartment, a shot of me asleep on the couch the night before. Blankets tangled, mouth slightly open, phone clutched in one hand. Whoever had taken it had been standing inside my home. I left the apartment that same morning with my heart still hammering from the photo. Me, asleep, taken from inside my own home. I didn't pack. I didn't turn anything off. I just walked out and slammed the door behind me like that would seal the fear inside. It didn't. I took the train 3 stops out and sat in the back of a 24-hour diner with greasy windows and a cracked jukebox that hadn't worked since 2009. That's where I decided to call Maribel's sister, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. We'd never been close, but I remembered her being sharp, suspicious of everyone, including me. When I mentioned the name Clara, there was silence on the other end. Then she said, "That wasn't her name." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean her name was never Clara," she said. "I don't know where you heard that, but it was a nickname Maribel used. A joke, kind of. They met at one of those retreats she started going to. The woman introduced herself as Claire at first, but Maribel kept calling her Clara. Said it sounded more theatrical. The way she said it, theatrical, made something twist in my chest. "What was her real name?" I asked. Another pause. "She never told me. But I know she lived off-grid. Like, intentionally. No digital trail. No socials. She didn't even give out a last name." I rubbed my eyes. "Did she ever come to Christmas?" "I think so, yeah," her sister replied. Maribel insisted she was just helping with decor or something. Said she was part of a creative collective. You know how she was about making things sound cooler than they were. That meant Maribel had lied. Clara, or whatever her name really was, hadn't just appeared in that photo by accident. She was invited. She'd been in the house, near me, near the family, wearing my jacket. And now she'd vanished completely, leaving no name, no trace, just a trail of altered photos and late-night threats. But the worst part? I wasn't scared of her. I was starting to think Maribel was scared of her, too. I didn't go back to the apartment for 4 days. I crashed at an old friend's place, barely sleeping, constantly watching the door, like someone might try to walk through it without knocking. Every little sound made my heart jump. But more than fear, I was obsessed with one thought. If Clara wasn't really Clara, and Maribel had been lying, then what else was fake? On the 5th day, I forced myself back. Broad daylight, busy street, neighbors walking dogs. The apartment didn't feel haunted anymore. Just hollow. I went room by room, checking for signs of entry. Nothing was stolen, nothing was moved. But in the bedroom, behind the dresser, I noticed something strange. A panel in the drywall that wasn't flush. I don't know why I checked it. I wasn't even looking for anything specific. I just had a feeling. Behind the panel, taped to the inside of the wall, was a single envelope. No name, no address, just sealed. Inside was a letter, handwritten in Maribel's tight, slanted script. If you found this, then I left too late. I wanted to tell you everything. But I thought I was protecting you by keeping you away. Clara, or whatever she's calling herself now, wasn't just someone I met. She followed me. Found me at a grief circle after I lost the baby. I didn't tell you about the miscarriage because I didn't know how. I blamed myself. Clara was kind at first, then controlling. She got in my head. She made me feel like I owed her something for helping me crawl out. And when I tried to pull back, she made threats. Subtle ones at first. Then more. She started showing up uninvited, messing with things, taking your jacket. That photo at Christmas, she took it. I didn't know until months later. When you found the engraving, I knew it was only a matter of time. I left the ring on purpose. I thought maybe, if you saw her name, you'd start pulling the thread. Because I wasn't strong enough to do it myself. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I erased you from the photos. I just thought that if you were invisible, she'd leave you alone. But you were never invisible to me. I sat there, reading it over and over. My breath shook, my chest felt tight. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But mostly, I felt one thing I hadn't felt in weeks: relief. It wasn't me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. There really was something darker behind it all. But more importantly, Maribel hadn't just left. She had tried, in her own fractured way, to save me. The next day, I gave the letter to a friend of hers, someone in her old writing group. I don't know what they did with it. I didn't want to chase her anymore. But a week later, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was the ring. This time, the engraving was back to what we originally chose. Until we're dust. And under it, added in new, careful script. But not before we heal. That was 9 months ago. I haven't seen Maribel since. But I did get a postcard from Portugal last week. No signature, just a picture of a rocky coastline and 5 words scribbled on the back. I'm getting better. You too. And you know what? I am.